This is homework set 17, still solving quadratic equations. Now here in question 1, I've got a square equaling a number. Why don't I just take square roots of each side? So I'll get the square root of x squared equaling the square root of 2/9. Now on the left side, we'll get the absolute value of x equals, on the right side, I've got the square root of a fraction. So I can break that up into square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. Now, I'm still going to leave the left side as the absolute value of x, but I'm going to clean up the right side a little bit. Square root of 2 I don't know, but the square root of 9 I'll write as a 3. And now, when I remove the absolute value, now I get plus or minus. So I'm just going to write this as plus or minus square root of 2 over 3. Now, keep in mind what this means is that you get square root of 2 over 3, and you get negative square root of 2 over 3. Just kind of a condensed notation. Well, here in question 2, we've got a quadratic with a squared term and a constant. There's no first degree term, and it doesn't factor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 28 and subtract it from both sides. So I'm going to get x squared equals negative 28, and now I'll take the square root of each side. So on the left, I'll get the square root of x squared. On the right, I'll get the square root of negative 28. On the left side, the square root of x squared is the absolute value of x. And on the right side, well, first of all, I can take that I out. And that 28, can you break it into two numbers, one of which you know the square root? How about 4 times 7? Now, I'm going to leave that absolute value on the left side for a minute here. But I know this. Square root of 4 times 7, I can write as square root of 4 times square root of 7. Square root of 4 is 2, so I'm going to take a 2 out, and I'll write it as 2i square root of 7. And now I'll eliminate that absolute value, so when I get rid of the absolute value, that's when I get plus or minus 2i square root of 7. And there is our solution. Might have to write it like this for the homework. 2i square root of 7 negative 2i square root of 7. You know, it just occurred to me that this back here, I wrote that incorrectly. These are not 1 and 2. These are 6 and 7. Now here in question 8, we've got 9x squared minus 50 equals 0. I've got a squared term and a constant, no first degree term. So I'm going to separate these and use that square root method. Now I notice 9 and 50 have nothing in common, so I can't factor anything out. So let's start here. 9x squared equals 50. And now I'm going to divide by 9. You know, I don't have to, but I'm going to divide by 9, so I'll get x squared equals 50 over 9. And now I'll take square roots. Square root of the left side looks like this. Square root of x squared equals square root of the right side. I'll get square root of 50 over 9. Now on the left side, I've got the square root of a square, so that's the absolute value of x equals. Now on the right side, I got the square root of a fraction, so take the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. Now I'm going to leave that absolute value over here on the left. Square root of 50. Well, I can write 50 as 25 times 2, and then the denominator, square root of 9 is 3. We're close. Absolute value of x equals, now in the top, I've got the square root of 25 times 2. The square root of 25 I know. I'll take that out as a 5, and I'll write it like this. 5 square roots of 2 over 3. And now, when I eliminate the absolute value, this is where I get the plus or minus. So x is equal to plus or minus 5 square roots of 2 over 3. But to write it in the homework, you're probably going to have to write it like this. 5 square roots of 2 over 3, and then negative 5 square roots of 2 over 3. Now here in question 9, instead of multiplying out this left side, why don't we just do this? I've got something squared, right? I have something squared on the left equals some number. Why don't I just take square roots of both sides? So I'll get the square root of the quantity 2x minus 5 squared equals the square root of 36. Now on the left side, I have the square root of a square. I'll get the absolute value of 2x minus 5 equals square root of 36 is 6. Now, when I eliminate those absolute value signs, here's what I get. I get 2x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus 6. And with that, I can write that like this. 2x minus 5 equals negative 6, or 2x minus 5 equals positive 6. Now this takes us all the way back to solving linear equations. Let's add 5 to each side, so I'll get 2x equals, now negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1, and over here on the right we'll get 2x equals 11. Now divide by 2, right? I'll divide by 2, so I'll get x is equal to negative a half, and over here I'll get x equals 11 halves. So here's my conclusion. X is equal to negative 1 half or 11 halves. Now in question 10, I noticed this right away. I've got something squared equaling a negative number. So I'm thinking I'm going to get i's out of this, right? This is going to be imaginary. Something squared equaling a negative number, got to be imaginary. So already these are separated. So I got something squared on the left equals some number. Let's take square roots of each side. I'll get the square root of 2x plus 3 squared equals square root of negative 36. And on the left side, square root of a square gives us the absolute value of 2x plus 3 equals, now on the right side, square root of negative is I. I'll get the I, and then square root of 36 is 6, so I'll get 6I. Now, remove the absolute value. This is where we get plus or minus. So I get 2x plus 3 equals plus or minus 6I. Or how about this? This is better to solve. 2x plus 3 equals negative 6I. Or 2x plus 3 equals positive 6I. Now, add 3 or subtract 3. 2x equals negative 3 minus 6I. And over here, we'll get 2x equals negative 3 plus 6I. And divide by 2. Now, I'm going to write it like this. I'm going to divide everything by 2 here. So I'll get x equals negative 3 over 2 minus 6 over 2I. But 6 over 2I I can write like this. X equals negative 3 halves minus 3I. And this one over here, I'll get x equals negative 3 over 2 plus 6 over 2I. But that's 6 over 2, that's a 3. So I'll get x equals negative 3 halves plus 3I. So here's what I get. X is equal to negative 3 halves plus or minus 3I. I like to write it like that. But the book has us doing this, all right? So when you write it according to the homework, at this point right here, you've got 2x equals negative 3 minus 6I. They're going to divide the whole term. I divided each individual. Right? I divided each individual by 2. They're going to divide the whole term by 2. So they get x equals negative 3 minus 6I all over 2. So when you write it in the homework, you're going to have to write it like this. X is equal to negative 3, and then it'll be plus or minus 6, and then the I is already there over 2. So you have to fill this one in, and this one in. And that is the end of homework set 17, at least questions 6 through 10.